Hey gang, Machen MacDonald here with another productivity pit stop for the week. And the purpose of today's pit stop is to help you identify and bring your A game on your hero's journey. So basically what we mean by bringing your A game, we all have that ability where we can be really resourceful. Our memory's clicking, we're bringing in everything that we know works and just hitting it out of the park, riding the wave, doing a great job. And there's times where, we can't grab our A game. We've got some voices in our head maybe that are telling us we're not enough, or we didn't do it right, or we're going to screw it up. We all have those voices in various areas of our life. So the trick is, how do you work with all of that so that you can bring your A game to every situation that you want? Now, I've created something. It's the alignment of the 6 A's. And that's what I mean by your A game. So if you understand these 6 A's and work with them in alignment, you will be able to step up your game, step more into your full potential more often, more frequently, and more effectively than ever before. So are you ready? Cool. By the way, if you have any questions, just put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring that from time to time and answer any questions that we might have. That's why you might see my darting back and forth. But so let's look at the first A. Now, when we're looking at how do we change behavior, how do we change anything, the first A is we need to have awareness. And the awareness comes from basically a disruption. In other words, knowing we don't want something or we don't like how something is going. And it's the contrast. If you've got, if you've got hunger pangs, that creates a pressure. There's an awareness there that you need to go do something. You need to go feed yourself. If you are not generating enough sales leads or generating enough business, that's an awareness that something needs to shift, something needs to change. So don't just feel it and then bury your head in the sand. Feel it, become aware, and then let's flow into how do we affect the change that we desire. So what we want to do is we want to recognize that we have something called an attitude. Now, what I mean by an attitude is not good or bad. It's just an attitude. It's an approach or an angle of how you view something. So as an attitude, right, we may not necessarily have the ability to control our circumstances or situation that we find ourselves in. However, we always have the power to choose the healthiest perspective from which to operate. That's our attitude, and we need to select the best one. Thanks, Mick. I like the comment. Does Barry Manilow know that I've raided his wardrobe? Good. Touche. All right. So coming back to attitude, you have to remember that you've spent your lifetime on this planet, and you've gathered a lot of wisdom. You've made a lot of distinctions. You've learned a lot of what works. You've learned a lot of what doesn't work. So you need to be able to tap into that collected or collective wisdom that you have. That's where we make good decisions. We make good choices. We take good and right action. And sometimes there's another little voice at work. So we've got to learn how to block that other voice, or at least not let it drive the show. And so that's where we talk about the attitude aspect of it. All right. Now, recognize that you can actually give that a name, right? You might give it a superhero name. For me, it's Machen at level 10, right? What would level 10 Machen do in this situation? What would level 10 Machen think about this situation? And level 10 for me, and you feel free to borrow it, whatever you want to call it for you, that's where that ability to turn those voices down, that second guess, that worry, that doubt, that slip into fear, you get to turn them down and just acknowledge this inner wisdom that we all have. Okay. So that's the attitude piece. The next part, once we've got that, is based upon whatever we're trying to achieve, right? If we want to make, here's a perfect example. Let's say that you need to pick up the phone and you need to make more prospecting calls. Okay. So you've been there before, you've done this before, and you know what voice, negative belief about yourself, or the shadow voice, or some people call it the gremlin or the inner critic. It's got all kinds of names. We've got to anticipate it's going to show up. And what's it going to say? How's it going to look? How's it going to feel? So if we anticipate how that may show up, right? So, I work with a lot of financial advisors and we got to get them to pick up the phone, make the calls, or go to a networking meeting and interact. And a lot of times that internal voice is saying things like, you know what, nobody really wants to talk about this. They're all set. They're probably already working with a professional. I'm not going to be able to really tell them anything they don't already know. Whatever the story is, and it is a story that we make up, we tell ourselves that to keep us safe so that we don't pick up the phone and make the call. So we want to anticipate what that story is going to be or what that voice is going to be. And once we can anticipate it, then we can have a way to override it. So what do we want our wise self to tell that voice? Now, for me, it's just a matter of noticing. It kind of goes back to the A1, the awareness. It's like, oh, it's you again. Okay. And by the way, those voices were formed at a very early age to protect us from being annihilated. Okay. However, that was formed when our brain wasn't even fully functioning. We didn't have a lot of years of experience on the planet. And so it kind of created a warning sign that we still tend to drag around with us. And when we get any sense of, danger, we throw that up and like, oh, I'm not going to go there. So just recognize that that's what it's trying to do. It's just trying to keep you safe. So when that voice creeps in, you just say, hey, it's you again. I got you. Okay. I'm going to bring my wise self to this action, to this next best action, and I'm going to do what I know I'm capable of doing. So just anticipate that voice. It's going to show up. But if you don't anticipate it, it's going to hijack you, right? It's lurking in the dark. You can't even see it. You don't know it's there. And then all of a sudden, it just takes over, tips you over emotionally. And now you're operating at the level of an 8-year-old, really. Okay. So don't let the 8-year-old drive the show. Bring your wisdom to the game. And once you identify and anticipate how that may show up, next is you've got to take an action. So what's the action going to be? Well, the action is, you know what? I've got to pick up the phone. I've got people to call. I'm going to do it. And for me, one of the ways that I go about it is I make the goal getting 10 no's, right? If I go for 10 no's, I know I'm going to get a yes here and there, but I'm okay with the no's. And I recognize that the path to success is paved with a lot of no's, right? So part of it is reframing how we see it, right? It's the alignment piece. So I'm going to tell myself I'm going to go for 10 no's right now, and not with one person, by the way, but 10 different people. But at the same time, I'm not going to fold my tent as quickly as some people might. I hear one no from one person. I might ask a little differently. I might ask a couple more questions because there may be a yes waiting there. But at the very least, I'm going to find a way to be able to stay in touch, get permission to stay in touch. So go for the 10 no's with 10 different people. You'll be glad you did. You'll get some yeses along the way. Now, once you've done that, you picked up the phone, you got your 10 no's or 8 no's and a couple yeses, celebrate it, right? Somewhere between, diapers and getting our business cards printed, we forget how to celebrate. So that's the next A, is acknowledgement, right? Acknowledge you did a good job. Give yourself a high five, a pat on the back, whatever it is. Reward yourself somehow for taking the action, stepping into what maybe scared you, and that you came out of it alive. You didn't get annihilated, right? You may have come across a couple jerks. So what? Now what? Celebrate, acknowledge that you did well. And if there's something that you can do better next time, acknowledge that too. and make a note, write it down, practice it, right? Ad-libbing is for amateurs, as Wayne Cotton says. So don't ad-lib when you're in there. Have a script, know what you're going to say. Does the script work? Did it get the results that you want, or do you need to tweak it a little bit? And if you need to tweak it a little bit, go ahead and tweak it. All right, moving on to the final A in our, oh, I didn't make a note for it, but the final A, sorry about that, guys. The final A, you know what? Here, I'm going to just do it real quick. I'm going to type it in here. Boom, A6. And that is my favorite word, accountability. I spelled that right. Okay, accountability. Doesn't look right. So accountability, that's a matter of conditioning. So you started with awareness. You recognize what works, what doesn't work. You remembered and you tapped into your high level 10 attitude. You know what needed to take place. You anticipated the little gremlin or saboteur voice, that inner critic that can sometimes take over. You took action. You acknowledged the action that you took and the results that you got. You calibrated it. And now accountability is just that aspect of doing it over and over and over again so that it becomes muscle memory, so that now when it becomes time to make your calls, you just do it. You don't have to go through all the A6s packed away in the muscle memory, and you're doing it unconsciously. That's what successful people do, is they bump up against this stuff consciously. They figure their way through it through the 6 A's. They condition it. It becomes muscle memory, and then they just do it, right? It's getting, 2 seconds left in the game. They get the ball, and they just know to take the shot, right? But it wasn't always that way, right? At some point, maybe grammar school, high school, you got the ball, 2 seconds left, and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't miss. And guess what happens? Air ball. But you practice, and then you visualize, overcoming that and doing a great job. And then, next time you get that pass with 2 seconds left, you don't have as much chatter in the head. You're a little bit more centered. You've practiced, you rehearsed, you take the shot. Maybe it's a rim shot, doesn't go in. Okay, you calibrate. Next time, boom, you get the shot, boom, it goes in. Okay, that's the way that it works, is you quiet that storm of that inner committee and all those voices. Okay, so this is your productivity pit stop for the week. If you want to learn more about how to manage the voices in your head, and I know some of you are saying, I don't have any voices in my head. Well, that voice right there that you just said that to yourself, that's the voice. So we all have them. We just have to learn how to dance with them and not let them take over the show. Okay, so if you want to learn how to tap into your wise self, bring more of your A game along with you on your hero's journey, just reach out, text BizDev, BIZDEV, to 21,000. You can get all my contact information. Happy to have a conversation with you to show you how to work with all of this. And we get to know each other. And if it leads to you wanting some coaching, we can have that conversation too, but it doesn't have to be. I'm just here to serve you, help you get out of your own way. This is your productivity pit stop for the week. Go out, go forth, practice the 6 A's, and have some fun. Bye for now.